Chris Gauser here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss Birds of Prey. Or, is it or? And. It's and. I got to get my indefinite articles right. And the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. The DC Extended Universe continues in this sort of offshoot sequel from Suicide Squad where we catch up with Harley Quinn and it's not performing well. We'll spend a few minutes talking about the neo-vampire rock fantasy gorefest Bliss, currently streaming on Shudder. And then Matt and I will share our 5 favorite female comic characters. We'll also tell you what's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD, featuring the straight-to-DVD and streaming picks of the week. And I think, Matt, we will do a little Oscar review.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
I watched that like 10 times the next day in the morning. I don't know. I did. We'll talk about it. Let's start everything off though with a clip from Birds of Prey.
Sionis.
They're all here for me. Aren't they?
No.
They're not?
No, they're not. Do you know what that means? That means he's not just after the kid anymore. He's after all of us. Sure as hell after me. I just robbed him. You just betrayed him. You just killed his BFF. And you're dumb enough to be building a case against him. So, unless we all want to die very unpleasant deaths and let Roman go finger fishing in the kid's intestinal tract, we're gonna have to work together.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Mew! All right, Matt, why don't you tell the fine folks at home, what is Birds of Prey all about?
Harley Quinn has broken up with the Joker. She's lost, wandering. She hasn't really told anybody because she knows that if she does, it'll be open season on her. But she decides to make it known that her and Mr. J are no longer an item, which opens up a slew of people looking to get revenge for all of the things that she's done. None more particular than Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask, played by Ewan McGregor, goes looking for her and ropes her into performing a deed for him in exchange for her life, maybe.
I have some new drops. I'm very excited. I don't know how I'm going to work them into the show. They're highly politically charged, but only if you are in the know of politics. So a lot of people may not get them. So
you mean I won't get them?
So look out for them, Matt. All I know though is that I would probably describe you as a
beta.
Okay, so we're
was that English?
We'll spend a few minutes here. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was not initially on board with this when it was first announced.
Me neither.
I blame it on the portrayal of Quinn, I think, in Suicide Squad.
Okay.
A film that I found underwhelming at best. I mean, when Jay Courtney is the most fun and interesting thing about your movie, I think you got some problems.
That's a big issue.
But I feel Robbie is able to kind of bring a depth to this role that we didn't see last time. And there's a lot of interesting pieces in this thing that I really rather enjoyed. So let me ask you, Matt, are we continuing the incline of the DCEU after Shazam? Or has this been a huge step backwards?
Yeah, I think this bodes positively as far as the quality of the film itself. For me personally, I would still say Shazam is my favorite of the DCEU films, but I would rank this as a solid number 2 selection. I had a lot of fun with this. I think Robbie is really embodies the kind of unhinged spirit of Harley Quinn. Whether your tolerance or enjoyment of that, it really depends on how much you enjoy the character from her other iterations in the video games and in the Batman the Animated Series, where she got her start. But I think it's very true to what she is. I think the problems I had with this movie were either just kind of my comic book nerd showing, like, why are they doing Cassandra Cain like this? She's supposed to be the terrifying Batgirl, not like the chubby pickpocket kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And the Birds of Prey didn't need to be in it at all for any reason. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this film. I didn't love it. I had seen some reviews. I had seen some of our fellow podcasters that we've done shows with and I follow talking about how much they loved it. So I had really high expectations going into it, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very solid, good film. Yeah. But I wouldn't say it's the best of the DCEU right now.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to generally agree with you. I think that I go back and forth on it being the best of the bunch, because I think it eschews the kind of the darkness of the prior films that we've seen outside of Shazam, and really embraces, I think, the camp and color of the genre. It has, and I read this online, and I thought this was a really interesting take, because I was trying to place kind of where I was coming from with the use of color and kind of how vibrant it is, and in the illustration of Gotham in this film. I think this is my favorite depiction of Gotham since Batman Returns. And it makes sense, and I'm blanking on, I don't know if this was Matt Singer on Screen Crush. I think it was, actually. But he had written that this basically takes Joel Schumacher's Batman films, but actually makes them interesting and relevant, and is the kind of the use of color and how vibrant everything is and how much more fun everything is. But still having, I think, a root in some of the grittiness that is this version of the DC Cinematic Universe. And I think it works. And also, one thing, too, it seems much more of a straightforward, though I don't mean a narrative, because the Kathy Yan, who directed the film, they pop around a little bit, especially in the beginning, right? In the timeline. We go back and forth, but it's more of an illustration of Harley Quinn's mental state, that she kind of pops around in time when she's narrating this story. But it seemed a more almost kind of conventional, straightforward superhero film than especially the Snyder films were. It just seemed much more competently done. It was a relatively solid script with some, I think, really great action scenes. In fact, there's one point, Matt, when I was watching this, I'm like, that is John Wick-esque. This one particular scene. I think it would be the one where she invades the police station or the jailhouse or whatever the case may be. And there's another one too where she's fighting. Is it that same one? Either way. But I found out later on they brought in the second unit director from John Wick to choreograph some of the fight scenes, some of the action scenes. So there you go. And one of the things I'm really impressed with is that the women are allowed to simply kind of be in this film. None of it felt forced. There is a strong female empowerment angle on this, and it works. I chalk it up, I think, to authenticity and being able to have an all-female kind of production behind it. It was written by women, directed by women. Robbie had a strong hand in development of the characters. So I'm just really impressed all around with it. If I had any critiques, I may say your point of the Birds of Prey are almost kind of pointless in this. Yeah, I think particularly with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, her Huntress character is criminally underused. And she doesn't even really have a personality in this thing until the last 20 minutes or so, which is disappointing. But a high point for me in all of this, I think, enjoyment and what's the word I'm looking for? Just the elevation of the women in this film. I hate to say it, but it's Ewan McGregor. I mean, he's clearly having a blast in this thing. I love the choices he makes. His black mask is serious. It's campy. His performance is fluid, not only in his menace and how he portrays him, but the sexuality of the character. You know, I mean, it's a lot of fun to watch. And that's what I would say about the film. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot better than I anticipated it was going to be.
Yeah, because those trailers were really underwhelming. I think that kind of kept a lot of people away. How do you think this compares to the other big rated R superhero film with the original Deadpool? I mean, does this feel like it? To me, it has some. I think it takes some of the lessons of that film and it borderlines on kind of copying it to a degree, or maybe relying on it too heavily as a template kind of thing. To the film's detriment.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So I think I'm hoping, unfortunately this thing is really not doing well. I mean, I looked at Box Office Mojo. I was like, well, how did Deadpool do? Was it like one of these things where it didn't do very well and then kind of built up over time? No, the thing made $47 million on its first day, which is what it made over 100 million in its weekend. So I'm hoping Robbie gets another chance at this. I thought she was really good at it. I think this can only get better if they allow it to kind of be its own thing, maybe distance itself from Deadpool as far as relying on those tropes, and then just we don't need the Birds of Prey. If you're going to bring somebody in, you got to bring in Poison Ivy, because they're Harley and Ivy are a classic character in the comics, pairing in the comics. So
yeah, I understand that they dated for a while too, right? After she broke up with the Joker in the comics. I've read for all the DC fanboy stuff that I spout out, I haven't read anything outside of Hellblazer basically in probably 10 years.
Yeah, they did. They I don't know if they dated. They had a kind of a very close relationship that had some physical aspects to it, but I don't think they were ever like. Were
they like my great aunt and her female roommate for years?
Maybe. Were they just never official? I don't know.
Nobody talked about it, but
right.
Yeah. One thing too that I want to put a permanent moratorium on is the use of Black Betty in movies.
Oh.
I am that'll knock you down like a part of a letter grade. Some of the music cues in this thing just don't particularly work. I know you're trying to, just like Deadpool or something, you want to introduce some fun pop or hard rock female-led songs. Barracuda is in this as well, which is okay.
Yeah.
But the Black Betty song, whenever I hear it, it's like the Gary Glitter song. I just roll my eyes. And
was Cherry Bomb in this? They play Cherry Bomb? They play any Runaways in this?
I don't know. They did play Joan Jett's I Hate Myself for Loving You.
Oh, did they? Okay.
So maybe that was it. No, and then there's a cover of a song too that just is not really good.
Oh yeah, that really slow one.
And I'm
really
blanking
slow
on what it was.
Yeah, I remember too. The soundtrack made no impression on me at all.
So here we go. I have the soundtrack up now. Oh yeah, the cover of the Pat Benatar song "Hit Me with Your Best Shot."
Right.
That just didn't really work for me either. And I know there's been leaked pictures of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. I think that's what he's calling it. And she's in that. She's popped up in that. So.
Oh, Harley Quinn is in it?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll see how that turns out. Gunn too says this is the most fun he's ever had making a film. He's doing lots of different things.
Oh, really?
He said it's like nothing you've ever seen from him before.
Oh, good.
So we'll have to see what happens. I think, is that next year or 2021? It's 2021. I think
that would be next year, yes.
Yeah. God, it's 2020, isn't it? So any final thoughts on Birds of Prey?
Yeah, I mean, it's an enjoyable. I mean, it has its flaws. I think all the DC films has its flaws, but I think they're moving in the right direction. It doesn't. I still think that for just pure enjoyment, Shazam is better. But I really did enjoy this, and it's a shame it's not doing well. People should go out and see it. It's kind of like an early summer movie in the late winter doldrums. So go out and have some fun, guys. Don't just sit in your house in the cold.
I agree. What are you going to give it?
I'm gonna give it a B.
There you go. Birds of a feather. You and I both giving it B's. What a shock. If you've had a chance to see Birds of Prey, which is playing in theaters now, and I echo Matt's comments, go see it. Go support this. It's a lot of fun. All right, you're gonna enjoy yourself. It's a little violent. It earns its R rating. Let's be perfectly clear, but it is a blast. Check it out. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts about Birds of Prey. Matt, let's go ahead then and transition over. Speaking of birds and preying, we'll tell you it's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD this upcoming Tuesday. And let's hear a clip from an Oscar winner, shall we?
You okay? Hi! You're a soldier now? At your service. But you're only 11. I know. May I? Yeah, sure. Is that paper? That's what I thought at first too, but it's paper-like. It's the latest material invented by a top scientist. Well, I'm impressed. Hey, Orky. I caught a Jew. A real one. Oh, a Jew. I saw some that they caught hiding in the forest last month. Personally, I didn't see what all the fuss was about. They weren't at all scary and seemed kind of normal. Ugh, I'm getting distracted. I got to go. Bye. Bye. Oh my god, it's so hard to run in this thing.
So that, of course, is a clip from Jojo Rabbit, the winner for Best Adapted Screenplay, which is a category that I got right. And Matt, how did you do? Oh, no.
Got it wrong.
No, you got it wrong. You did choose what should have won, but you did unfortunately get it wrong, which was Little Women. So Jojo Rabbit is coming up on home video this week, February 18th. Includes 3 deleted scenes, some outtakes, a making of featurette called Inside Jojo Rabbit, and an audio commentary by Taika Waititi. I'm gonna pick this up. Basically, too, is I want to hear his commentary. I think I love this guy. I think he's hilarious. He's brilliant. And I can't wait to see what he has to say about the making of this film. The Mr. Rogers film, another Oscar-nominated movie, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, includes 15 minutes of additional scenes, a blooper reel, and some making of featurettes, including a film commentary. There's a special on Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers. I can't think of a better casting decision, really, of the last 10 years than Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers. Roland Emmerich still continues to make films, and his version of Midway is coming out. Includes a steel book from Target. You get a commentary by Emmerich and some making of featurettes as well. There's just no juice. I have no interest in seeing this thing. Emmerich, ever since his high watermarks of... I shouldn't say high watermark as if it's a good film, but since his massive success with Independence Day, I
agree.
He made that god-awful Godzilla movie too, didn't he?
He did.
Broderick?
Yeah.
Man. The Chadwick Boseman action film 21 Bridges is coming out. This is where he plays a disgraced detective who's given a shot at redemption, includes some deleted scenes and a commentary by the director Brian Kirk. I'm a Boseman guy. I'll pick this up. Excuse me, let me clarify. I won't pick it up, but when it hits your Primes, your Netflixes, whatever, I'll check it out.
There you go.
Snatchers is being released. After a status-obsessed teen, Sarah, has sex for the first time, she wakes up the next day, 9 months pregnant, with an alien. The birth of Snatchers, a behind-the-scenes look, is included, as well as a blooper reel and commentary by the director and writers. Disturbing the Peace. A small-town marshal who hasn't carried a gun since he left the Texas Rangers, or after a tragic shooting. They must pick up his gun again to do battle with a gang of outlaw bikers that has invaded the town to pull off a brazen and violent heist. All right, sounds interesting, but it stars Guy Pearce. And I'm a kind of a big Guy Pearce fan, so I'm always curious to see what he does. And I may check out Disturbing the Peace. Jordan Peele's update of The Twilight Zone Season 1 is being released on physical media as well. New to Blu-ray, Criterion is giving us Teorema. A mysterious stranger seduces the members of a wealthy Milanese family, precipitating... Excuse me. Yeah, that's it. I got it right the first time. Believe in yourself, Chris. Precipitating an existential crisis in each of their lives. A new K4K restoration, an alternate English dub soundtrack featuring the voice of actor Terrence Stamp, an audio commentary from 2007, an introduction by the director, in case you weren't aware, is Pier Paolo Pasolini from 1969, a 2000 interview with Stamp, new interviews, a new English subtitle translation, and more. Criterion is also releasing Antonio Guadi, the work of a Catalan architect, Antonio Guadi, as seen by Japanese New Wave director Hiroshi Teshigahara. That is the first time I read that name, and I think I nailed it. Includes a new high-definition digital transfer and restoration, an interview with architect Arata Izuzaki from 2008, footage from 1959 from Guadi Catalunya, which is from the director as well, of his first trip to Spain. See, I bumbled that. And so you get cocky, Matt. You fly too close to the sun. An hour-long documentary from 2003 on the architect's life and more. MVD is releasing The Point, which is an animated film based on the Harry Nilsson album. I had no idea what this is. I think I know a couple Nilsson songs, but that's it. It's a new 2K remaster from the original 16mm elements and 4 other new features, one of them being an interview. Your straight-to-DVD pick of the week, Matt, is Road of No Return. 4 hitmen are secretly brought together in a covert operation to fight the nation's drug trafficking epidemic. But when they rescue an orphan girl from the criminals, They unwittingly bond with the child and jeopardize the operation. When the forces between the operation order the men to be killed, the hunters suddenly become the hunted. Starring David Carradine from Kill Bill and, of course, Kung Fu and the classics. And, of course, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, and Hateful Eight star Michael Madsen. What should we be streaming this week, Matt?
So I'm going to recommend, because I spent a lot of my movie watching time watching movies for the show, I didn't get a chance to catch up with anything particularly news, but I did spend a lot of time watching the newest series from Netflix, Lock and Key, based on the comic book of the same name, written by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son, a famous novelist in his own right. I really enjoyed the comic series. It is about the Locke family. After being subject to a familial tragedy and a death in the family, they decided to get a fresh start by moving across the country to Massachusetts into their father's ancestral home, Key House. And there the children discover that hidden within the house are magical keys that grant special powers, and there are evil forces looking to get a hold of them. It's a lot of fun. I wouldn't say it's scary, but it definitely has a supernatural bent to it, and it's a fun little show. I had a good time watching it.
You've completed the whole season?
I did, yes.
I just started watching The Outsider on HBO. I'm one episode in.
Good too.
I love me some Ben Mendelsohn, so that was the deal clincher for me.
Yeah.
And of course, it's got your boy Bateman, right? So how bad can it be? I didn't realize it was. I'm assuming, not to be too spoilery. It's only 5 episodes. Oh, okay.
No, it's coming out weekly, so it's.
There's only 5 out so far.
Yeah.
So, but I'm assuming it's some kind of. Because I didn't know it was a horror thing. I thought it was like a crime thriller.
Sure.
But I guess there's some kind of doppelganger action going on. I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out.
That's right.
All right, so let's spend a couple minutes, Matt, though. I want to quickly go over this past weekend's Oscars. So how about one more time?
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
So, Matt, was that enough to redeem the Oscars for you?
Sure. I mean, I'm happy Parasite won. I think it deserved to win. I'm glad that all of the other pundits, including the most famous ones here on the show, saying that 1917 was going to win, which I'm surprised that 1917 got as little recognition as it did, considering how much steam it seemed to have. But you know what? Parasite is an excellent, excellent film. It absolutely deserved what it got. But at the same time, redeem the Oscars? Sure. I mean, it's fine, I guess.
Yeah, not enough for me. I mean, I'm shocked that they got it right. I didn't think there was any chance, especially when they announced that it won Best International Feature. I'm like, well, that's it. Just like last time with Roma, that it was over. Right. It was done. But I was shocked. I love Jane Fonda's announcement, too. The audio clip is good, but watch the actual video. You can see it on YouTube. You can see it everywhere. And there's just where she takes this kind of breath, and then you could almost feel the electricity in the room when it went right before. I did. I don't know. Maybe it's just me because I love the film so much. But the fact that it won directing, I'll get there. Best Picture, I mean, all this stuff, it blows my mind. So, unfortunately for Matt, he was trounced yet again.
I mean, this is not consecutive because last year I won soundly.
Right. So, out of 10 years, you've been... So I was 19-5. Matt was 16-8. We both obviously got burned on achievement in directing and Best Picture because we thought it was going to be 1917. Production design, it's preposterous that 1917 won that. I think, especially since they built that house in Parasite and how integral the design of the house is. Mm-hmm. Also, to the village where I get angry just thinking about it. And sound editing was weird because I think Ford v Ferrari won that, which is just, cars go vroom real loud. That's really what we're putting together there. So, overall, though, I was pleased. Now, I promised I wouldn't watch it, and I didn't really. I had it on my iPad while I was playing video games. Mm-hmm. So I was basically just listening to announcements in between Star Wars Battlefront and the Uncharted. All 3 of the first Uncharted were free for PS Plus last month. So even though I played them 3 times each. I started playing that again. I got games I've bought that I haven't even opened. I keep going back to other stuff. It's sad, really. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with how everything turned out with the Oscars. Outside of, not just winning and then kicking everybody's ass, but more just the results. I'm pretty pleased with everything goes. Just really, congratulations to Parasite. Well deserved.
Good. I guess after my last, I still stand by my statement that there are other things that you need to get angry about. If you're going to get angry about something, there's other things to get angry about. So
that's true.
Don't waste what limited capital you have worrying about filmmakers and artists, how they congratulate each other.
That's fine.
I don't even know. What is that? I can't even. What is that?
You don't know what?
I know.
Do you know who Jesse Lee Peterson is?
No, I don't.
Okay. He's a political kind of guy. He is a black gentleman who is fiercely conservative and thinks that black people are lazy.
Okay.
And he thinks really all the horrible stereotypes.
Right.
He's a big believer, but he's famous for beta males. If you're because women belong in the kitchen. They that kind of thing. And if you think women deserve equal rights, or the case may be, then you're a beta male.
Oh, gotcha.
If you don't take care of your family. And there's other big phrases.
Amazing.
He says amazing a lot too whenever he's excited about something.
Well, all right. Well, just guys, remember, Australia's still on fire, and the CO2 levels have been the highest they've ever been again. So, but let's worry about Oscars. That's what we should be worked up about.
Okay. All right, Debbie Downer.
Well, I'm just telling you. I'm just saying. I understand it's important, but it's not that important considering everything else that's going on.
There are a few things that are concerning me right now. As well.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, the Justice Department that just releasing people.
It's a nice republic if you can keep it, as Benjamin Franklin once said. Yes, but Benjamin Franklin, clearly. So, what are you gonna do?
That's right.
Though he was a hit with the ladies supposedly. So
the older ladies, that's what he liked.
Smart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is getting weird. All right, why don't we go ahead and wait? I got some good transition music for you, Matt. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's spend a couple minutes and talk about. Let's talk about Bliss.
Nikki's pushing me to drop your pieces.
I'm going broke. I can't live off of nothing.
And I can't live off 10% of nothing.
I haven't finished a painting in 3 months.
Try this. It's the closest thing they got to a pure, uncut mix of cocaine and DMT.
I started painting again. I don't know, something came over me and then it all just started pouring out of me. I don't even remember doing it.
Like you blacked out?
It was like I was possessed.
I mean, that's good, right?
Yeah, it's great.
So, Matt, are you familiar with Joe Begos or Begos? I apologize, I should have looked this up. Begos' work?
No, I'm not actually.
So he is a kind of an underground-esque horror director, and this is supposed to be his best film yet.
Okay.
Desi is a struggling artist who is in some less than reliable relationships with friends and lovers, and she's struggling to deliver her masterpiece, her painting, to fulfill her contract for an art gallery. And one night she does some drugs, affectionately known as Bliss, and at some point has an interaction with another couple, and there she becomes possessed or changed by something that then also works in conjunction with the Bliss drugs, and she becomes kind of this souped up, super hyped up version of this thing.
Right.
And is able to complete her painting. She has found inspiration but at the cost of the lives of the people she cares about. Matt, there are some things I was really impressed with this film, and some other stuff I found absolutely dreadful. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a film that is, again, horror films are a niche genre in general, and this is one of those niche horror films, so it's really got a very narrow audience. There are things about it that I thought were really effective. It's very disorienting, which some people may say is a criticism of its storytelling and its structure. But it is very kind of dreamlike, and it has some images that, even though they were very simple, I thought were very effective. And they were usually when they involved Courtney, like Courtney in the bathroom when her face is dark, like in the shadow, and you can't see it, even though she's like an inch from her face.
Yeah,
I thought that was scary as hell. There were other scenes like that I thought were actually really good, and I like how they kind of skirt around kind of everything that's going on. But at the same time,
Norm is in it.
Norm is in it. That's true, and so is Kubiak from Parker Lewis Can't Lose. So, I think there's a lot of style there. There's not a lot of substance, and I think, unfortunately, because this thing is obviously micro budget, and a lot of the people are kind of amateurs, it suffers in some of its execution.
Yeah, I think that is the perfect description. I know where all the money went in this film, and it was well spent, but. The problem is you have some really poor dialogue and some line deliveries in this thing that just are not strong at all. I think at times it bites off too many different styles. It was reminiscent of Bava's Demons, and there's some Near Dark in here. Argento as well. Maybe some Gaspar Noé. There's very much an 80s Euro shock kind of just pastiche about this that I found kind of almost derivative, and not so much an homage. But when we get to it, when the gore effects show up,
right,
this is some top-notch stuff. This is some of the more realistic and disturbing, violent gore scenes that I can recall, really, in the last few years. I mean, really, he's got an eye for this stuff, and it is truly disturbing and exceptionally well done. The last 30 minutes of this thing, I think, is where the film really works. Everything clicks, and it really becomes interesting and scary. The problem is, even though it's got a scant 80 minutes, and again, Matt, great job of running down, getting these run times for these films lately.
I do what I can.
But it's a slog for the first 50 minutes. I really felt like waiting for this thing to get going. And when it does, it's going to knock you on your ass. There's also some greater metaphor about addiction and, and how important a role are drugs in your art, and is it lost then when you start to, or do you find it's a whole thing? But it made me think too. Now I'm a failed artist as well, so did I just not do coke? Is that the problem? Should I have done
I think you really needed to dabble in some drugs to really kind of get a hold of your creative side, man. You know what? You live in Florida. Go find a cow pasture. You can dig up some shrooms. Get out the old paintbrushes and stuff, and you'll be good to go.
That's not a bad idea. So I tend to grade, particularly horror films. It's on a curve,
right?
I think, right? Because Bliss is not Parasite. When we're talking about comparing films and grades. So I think it's fair to say that. So I'm going to give Bliss a B-, even though the opening bit is a bit rough. When this thing grabs you, it grabs you. And it is truly disturbing. So I think by that alone, I'm giving it a B-. What about you?
It's disgusting how far off the base we are all the time, but I'm going to give it a B- too. When this thing works, it works really well, and it has some flashes of some stuff that's not even just the gore effects. It has some flashes of some stuff that's really just unsettlingly creepy and subtle.
Yeah.
But when it's not on, which is unfortunately for a good portion of its runtime, it is a bit of a slog. So if this has piqued your interest at all, if this is on your radar, I would say go ahead and give it a shot, because who knows? It's probably got something to show you.
There you go. Bliss is currently available for rent most places and is streaming on Shudder. If you had a chance to see Bliss, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. All right, Matt, let's get into it. Let's spend a few minutes and talk about our 5 favorite female comic book characters. And I'm going to do it one more time, Matt, for you.
Now, pretty little thing. Nice and easy. Yeah.
I just love a big, strong man who's not afraid to show it with someone half his size. Be gentle, it's my first time. Thanks, You make it so easy, don't you? Always waiting for some bad man to save you. I am Catwoman. Hear me roar.
I was initially going to use the mistletoe scene from that film, but I think we've used it before, so I decided to find another one because I wanted to give, of course, Ms. Pfeiffer her due as Catwoman in the best of that era's Batman movies, Batman Returns.
Okay.
So no big criteria issues here, right? It's just our 5 favorite female comic book characters. Mm-hmm. So, Matt, you're, I think, more steeped in the comic book lore than I am, so I'll give you the ultimate number 1. I'll start everything off with a cheesy pick. Just conceptually, I adore so much about this character. The fact that she somehow is able to take music, particularly disco, and part of her uniform being roller skates, and then turn that into light and throw it at people, right? In some ways, it turns the light.
You could say she dazzles them.
Perhaps. So, of course, my number 5 is Dazzler, a character who unfortunately has had some of the worst costumes in the history of comics. That 90s one, too, with the blue, with the headband, right? Just she's been tortured. But I love the discounts, the suit with the bell bottoms and that eye makeup and stuff. I actually was going back and forth between Dazzler and Dagger because they're actually pretty similar.
They are, yeah.
But, so just the sheer cheesiness and ridiculousness of it all, I decided to Dazzler is going to be my number 5.
It's a good one. Yeah, I think I had a weird affection for not Dazzler, but for Cloak and Dagger. Mm-hmm. I never want to watch that show. I haven't seen it, but that's a good pick. Dazzler is fun. All right, so my number 5 is Jenny Sparks, aka the Spirit of the 20th Century from Warren Ellis's The Authority. So that is in the Wildstorm kind of pocket universe of DC, where essentially Jenny is every 100 years, every century, there's people that are born called the Century Babies, and one of them is always named Jenny, and she embodies the kind of the overall feeling and advances of that century. So she's got these electrical powers. She basically doesn't age when she hits adulthood, and she basically represents the 20th century, and she's destined to die once the new Jenny is born. She's a tough woman, got a really cool anarchic rebellious streak with the kind of big changes that happened in the 20th century. And The Authority by Warren Ellis is a fantastic comic. If you want to read it, start with Stormwatch when he took over the writing duties for Stormwatch, and that carries over into The Authority. It's got Midnighter and Apollo. It's fantastic.
It's basically like just a fascist Justice League, right? But like a good guy-ish fascist Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the first times, too, when I read the first couple years of The Authority, I think. I liked Warren Ellis. But it was my first, I think, introduction into having 2 main characters be in a gay relationship between Apollo and Midnighter.
Yeah.
That I can recall. So, that was a big thing. That was the early 90s, too, right? When The Authority was out?
But I don't know it wasn't early 90s. It was like late 90s, early 2000s.
My number 4 is Hawkgirl. But it's not She-Ra. It's Kendra Saunders. So when James Robinson had fresh off of Starman, which is still my all-time favorite comic, the Jack Knight Starman with Tony Harris, Well, he then brought back the Justice Society. Now, I'm a sucker. I think that's why I'm a Marvel, a DC guy. I love all those old school Golden Age heroes, and Justice Society is basically the Justice League of those. You got your Dr. Fates, your Spectre, your Hawkman, your Mr. Terrific, right? You got all these guys. Well, when they brought the Justice Society back, the JSA, Kendra Saunders was the new Hawk Girl, but what's different is that now the Hawk Girl and Hawkman Hawkman particularly is one of the most convoluted comic characters of all time. His origin changes like every 20 years. And I think that they just recently tried to reconcile all of that stuff in the most recent series. And I read it, I think, because Brian Hitch was illustrating it. It's okay. And it's a relatively, I think Jeff Johns wrote it, but it's a relatively neat way of kind of tying in all the different Hawkmen that have existed. But what's different is this time is, so Hawkman and Hawkgirl are always fated to be together. Well, this time Kendra says no. She does not want to continue that kind of thing. So it was an interesting new dynamic. And James Robinson was really kind of able to make her own independent character instead of basically just being a sidekick to Hawkman. So, and it's still one of the more striking designs, I think, for a comic character is Hawkman and Hawkgirl. So, anyway, I just think that new spin that he put on her was really interesting, and how she kind of came into her own during the JSA series was one of my favorite reads. So, there you go.
Very good. All right, so my number 4 is Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl / Oracle. Barbara was the first Batgirl. She was obviously Commissioner Gordon's daughter, and she's gone through many different changes. I mean, they've kind of rebooted and retconned Batgirl several times and done different versions of Barbara Gordon to kind of keep her up to date with the times. But there was that section where, for a while, she was Oracle, basically Batman's eyes and ears, as well as kind of the de facto leader of the Birds of Prey. So I think Barbara Gordon has a great long history. I think she's absolutely my favorite of the Batgirls, even though Cassandra Cain is like I said, terrifying. I have a real affection for Barbara Gordon.
Yeah, she was an honorable mention for me. I just never... It was so shocking reading The Killing Joke at the time when it came out. I mean, beautifully illustrated graphic novel, but just really shocking. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of hated what they did to her in that, to kind of put her in the wheelchair. And now I don't know if she's still Oracle and if she's still in the wheelchair or not. I'm not sure.
A big thing. It was actually a really big thing because she was in the wheelchair and she became Oracle, and she was, she had a long history of Oracle. And when they changed it, they retconned it away and kind of made her better. Disabled comic fans were really upset because it was like their representation. So it's interesting. It's just because, people really hate what they did to the Joker did to her. And I think it's more because they were doing it to torture her father, and not because she was Batgirl, not because he knew she was Batgirl. It was just kind of like a tool to use to kind of get at Batman through a roundabout way. She's not Oracle anymore. She hasn't been Oracle for a very long time. She's gone through multiple iterations for these different New 52 and all these different reboots. They reboot her every single time as to some newer, younger version of herself.
Interesting. I hadn't even thought about that, though, the representation for disabled comic book fans. That's a really interesting... That's too bad, then, that they've put her back in the official Batgirl role, if that's what they've done.
Yeah.
So my number 3, then, is Rogue from X-Men. I think this is such a fascinating story, how her mutant power, right, is that she can't touch you, because if she does, she'll absorb your abilities or even possibly your life force.
Yeah,
right?
If she touches you too long, yeah.
She'll kill you if she touches you for too long. And then she had that issue where she was she Captain Marvel at the time? When that's how she got her speed and flight and invulnerability and all that stuff, her strength.
She sucked out Captain Marvel's powers. She sucked out Carol Danvers' powers and basically killed her. Carol Danvers was dead for a long time because Rogue killed her.
Right, which I think was another dimension to her. So she's got that tortured part of her past. Now, I did hate the whole, was she from New Orleans, the whole sugar thing?
Yeah.
But still, just the tragedy of her character and never being able to experience really physical touch with people was always, I think, a really fascinating side story for her something she had to deal with. So, yeah, so Rogue's my 3.
All right. So my number 3 is from my favorite comic book of all time. And if you haven't read it, go out and stop listening to this right now and go out and pick it up and start reading it. It's Death from Neil Gaiman's The Sandman series. So Death is a member of the Endless. Unlike gods, they don't require our belief. They just simply are. As long as life exists in the universe, the Endless always exists. Now, the main character is Dream, but his older sister is Death. And she's always represented as a very friendly, jovial, not scary young woman who, looks like she's a reject from The Cure or the big, Robert Smith's biggest fan, but still, she's a very friendly, kind of warm representation of Death, who at the same time is not somebody you want to mess with, obviously. So I really enjoy Death. She even has several of her own kind of offshoot comics that are little mini series. So, but if you haven't read the Sandman, and just because we're talking about comic books and I have to mention it every time we do, you should go out and read it.
I have never read Sandman.
So good.
I knew I gotta catch up with that. Jeez. So my number 2 then is Cameron Chase from the short-lived series Chase. It was written by Dan Curtis Johnson, illustrated by one of my favorite comic artists, J.H. Williams III. And Cameron Chase was an agent of the DEO. If you watch Supergirl on CW, the DEO plays a very prominent role in that show. But this is where it all started, which is the Department of Extra Normal Operations. They're basically kind of like the FBI that deal with superheroes in the DC universe. And had a lot of interesting stuff. It's kind of a modern neo-noir. And what interesting is Cameron Chase actually had like a superhero ability. She could dampen the talents of the superpowers of the heroes and villains in her kind of immediate vicinity. And the organization was run by an old character called Bones, who's a guy basically just has a skeleton or a skull head. And anyway, it was a lot of great stuff, a lot of intrigue, a lot of mystery, as well as superhero action, and some beautiful work by J.H. Williams. So Chase, the comic, and Cameron Chase is my number 2.
All right, so my number 2 is Lana from Brian K. Vaughan's Saga series. Saga being my favorite comic book that's being out right now, that's still in production or still being published. Basically, Saga is the story of 2 lovers from opposite sides of a war. There's the Horns, which are basically these magical users from this moon of this planet. That's like this high sci-fi that they call the Wings, because they all have wings on them. So Alana, she's a member of the Wings. She meets and falls in love with a soldier from the other side. She gets pregnant and they go on the run together. And it's really their story being told by the daughter after she's all grown up. It's an absolutely fascinating story. I mean, just the crazy stuff that goes on with it, just the imagination of it, just how real it is as far as the relationships and the struggles they go through from the mundane to the extreme. Not for kids at any sense, but it is. But Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan have made a fantastic comic that will at times break your damn heart. So you have to go out and read it if you haven't read it. It's not over yet either, too.
I haven't. It's this main thing is my comic knowledge is so mainstream, right? I have not delved really outside much of independent stuff.
Yeah, you need to check it out, Chris. It's so good.
So my number 1 is the laziest pick I think that you can come up with, and it's Diana Prince. It's Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
part of the holy trinity of DC Comics. The second most powerful. Is she the second most powerful hero in the DCEU?
Well, I like how the DC, it really depends on whose comic it is. She's more powerful. She's the most powerful if it's her comic, but she's less powerful than Superman if it's his comic.
Well, I think too, though. I think Firestorm is technically the most powerful because he can manipulate matter.
True, but we all know that the most powerful is Batman because he can outthink all of them if it's his comic book.
Given enough time, there's anybody, he can take out anybody.
Right.
Enough planning. But yeah, I mean, particularly too with the Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot's interpretation of the character. She has been one of the lone bright spots of the DC cinematic universe. And Gadot has done a great job portraying her. You have the actual show from back in the day when I was growing up. which was, I was a fan of as a kid, though that was right at the tail end of that show, was right when I was just born-ish. But I used to watch the reruns. So just a great story, steeped in Greek mythology, and that's another character that's gone through a lot of changes over the years, but always interesting, and she had some great creators working on her stuff. George Perez, right? Who else? Who was the George Perez knockoff? That's not a nice thing to say, but he totally was.
I don't know.
I can't remember his name now. Anyway, so yeah, Wonder Woman's my number one. One of the greatest comic characters of all time.
There you go. She certainly is. Have you seen that movie about the creation?
No, I have not.
Professor Marston and the Wonder Women or something like that?
Yeah, no.
So my number one, if you're looking to introduce your kids to comics and you don't want to give them a superhero comic, or they're not interested in superhero comics, my recommendation is Jeff Smith's Bone. And one of the main characters is Thorn, who starts off as a young, idealistic, naive, tough peasant girl who kind of goes on this grand adventure and kind of fulfills her destiny. And you see her kind of grow up and really have this kind of incredible arc as it goes through the entirety of the run. I love Bone. I love Thorn. My daughter, I managed to it's really hard for me to get my daughter interested into anything I'm interested into. I've tried Star Wars and I failed multiple times. I've tried, the MCU stuff, and she's just not interested. But Bone, I was able to kind of give her the first one and she just kind of devoured them. So it's a great, easy story that's appropriate for everybody. It's scary, it's funny, it's good. It's a good time. So Thorn is my number one.
Gotta add that to the list as well. Jesus. Phil Jimenez, by the way, was the George Perez guy. And of course, we do have Wonder Woman 1984 coming out in a couple months.
For legit, I'm really excited about that movie. That's the movie of the summer for me so far.
I cannot wait to see Pascal Perez as Maxwell Lord. I think that is going to be a blast.
Really interesting to see what Kristen Wiig as Cheetah is like.
Yeah, no, that should be good. Did I say isn't it Pedro Pascal? Did I screw that up?
Oh, did you?
Yeah, Pedro Pascal, not Pascal Perez. Jeez, Chris. Okay, does you have any honorable mentions?
So, Susie from Matt Faction's Sex Criminals, where it's about these...
You could be making this up. I have no idea.
No. It's Susie, but it's Matt Fraction's Sex Criminals. Basically, this couple, they get together, and when they reach climax, time stops, and they decide that they're going to rob banks. When that happens, it's a lot of fun. Mazikeen from the Lucifer series, which is
a good one.
The Sandman. Josephine from Fatale, which is all by Jim Brubaker. That's a lot of fun too, because it's this mashup of noir and Cthulhu mythos, where she's this immortal character that she kind of goes throughout the whole thing. Josephine is the kind of the requisite fatale, but there's all this kind of Cthulhu mythos stuff going on in the background. It's really cool. And I think I've mentioned it before on the show, but Dr. Aphra from the Darth Vader comics, she is like Indiana Jones if Indiana Jones had no moral compass and was basically evil. It's really cool.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I forgot all about Mazikeen. I did read Mike Carey's Lucifer, and I think I've read a couple of the Lucifer runs. Mm-hmm. So that's good. I had MJ, Mary Jane Watson. Did have Batgirl, Poison Ivy, Catwoman, as you heard earlier, Jean Grey, particularly the Phoenix Saga. I think much like Barry Allen, when bringing her back was a mistake. Linda Park, Wally West's Rock, the thing that always allowed him to return when he went too far in the Speed Force.
Right.
And of course, is the Flash. That's what brought me back in the comics in the 90s, was Mark Waid's run on the Flash, and then Jeff Johns taking over. Most of the women in Wyatt the Last Man, Snow White and Fables, and like you said, I'm going to toss Mazikeen on there just because I totally forgot about her.
Mm.
So who's your favorite female comic book character? Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. We would love to hear all about it. All right, Matt, let's talk about what we're going to be doing next week. You, unfortunately, will not be around. I'm going to see if we can line up a guest. I don't know what we're going to do. We originally slotted to do Downhill. I got to admit, I get this weird itch for Fantasy Island.
Okay, gotta scratch it then.
The schlock in me, I think, wants to check it out. And I think the week after that, we may be finally getting Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which we absolutely have to discuss. It was my number 2 film of 2019. Mm-hmm. So that will be fun. In the interim, Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Do a search for The First Run. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Eventually you will find us. Go on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. I will read it on air, and it'll help other people find the show. All right, Matt, why don't we go ahead and take an extended break? You enjoy your vacation. Have fun at Star Wars Land. It's at Galaxy's Edge. Is that what it's called?
Galaxy's Edge, yeah.
And enjoy, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Everybody else, I'll see you next time.
Nothing makes sense anymore. Yeah, I know. It's definitely not a good time to be a Nazi.